Welcome all to Whispers in the Dark, where shadows breathe and forgotten voices stir. Step beyond the veil and lose yourself in a realm where reality fractures and nightmares whisper lullabies. Here we conjure true psychological thrillers, haunted tales, and horror stories that burrow deep beneath your skin and nestle in the quiet corners of your mind. Each story crackles like old film reels, unspooling secrets too heavy for daylight. Whether it's the slow unraveling of a fractured psyche or the cold caress of something unseen lurking just behind you, we promise narratives that will haunt you long after the final word is spoken. So get ready, dim the lights, slip on your headphones and listen closely for the whispers in the dark, and subscribe if you dare to return.
They tell you not to whistle at night in my hometown. I used to think it was just one of those things elders say to scare kids, like don't sleep with wet hair or you'll wake up blind. But now, I know better. I was born in Zacatecas, Mexico, but moved to San Antonio when I was 9. My mother brought her stories with her, the kind that curl around your childhood like smoke. Ghosts that follow bloodlines, creatures that don't need permission to cross borders. My mum would say, La lechuza escucha lo que no debería. The owl woman hears what she shouldn't. She said it in whispers, mostly when she thought I wasn't paying attention. I never believed any of it, not until last month. I was staying at my cousin Arturo's place for the weekend. He lives in a small house just outside Laredo, where streetlights disappear and the night feels too big for the sky. The town was quiet, mostly old folks and families that lived there for generations, the kind of place where legends cling to the corners like mold. We were in his backyard around 11 p.m., passing a bottle and talking trash under the stars. Arturo was the one who brought it up. You ever hear about La Lechuza? He asked. Yeah, my mum used to say she'd take bad kids. Arturo shook his head. She takes more than that. They say she's a witch who sold her soul, turned into an owl, a big one, white as bone with a face like a woman. She waits in the trees. You hear her crying, like a baby, or whistling like the wind. If you answer, she comes. I laughed, maybe a little too loud. So what? She hates whistling? Don't do it, he said, suddenly serious. Not out here. I mean it, Gway. So, of course, I whistled. Just a short, sharp note into the empty night. And then I did it again. Arturo slapped the bottle out of my hand. Are you fucking stupid? But I was already listening. At first, nothing. Then the wind picked up, dry and sharp, like it had teeth. The mesquite trees on the edge of his yard rustled unnaturally, like something heavy was in them. Then, a whistle. It sounded like mine. Same tone, same rhythm. I froze. Did you hear that? Arturo's face was pale. He just nodded. The whistle came again. Closer. I laughed nervously. It's probably a bird, maybe a coyote. But my voice cracked halfway through, and I knew I didn't believe it either. We went inside, locked the doors, closed the blinds. By 2 a.m., Arturo was asleep on the couch, but I couldn't. I kept hearing it. Soft, deliberate, like it knew I was listening. Whistling. Then came the scratching. Light at first, then harder. Something was scraping at the living room window. 3 claws, slow and steady. I inched over and peeked through the blinds. There was an owl on the fence. No, not an owl. It was too big. Its wings were folded tight, but it stood almost 4 feet tall. Snow-white feathers glowing in the moonlight. Its head turned, slow, unnatural, like it wasn't attached to a spine. And I saw its face. It wasn't a bird's face. It had eyes like mine, black human eyes, and a mouth. No beak. Lips, pale and cracked, stretched into something like a grin. It whistled. I backed away from the window. Then the lights flickered. and the power went out. That's when I heard the baby crying. It was coming from the backyard, but it was wrong. The pitch kept shifting, rising and falling like a radio signal gone bad. I shook Arturo awake. "It's outside, man. We need to leave." He sat up and looked at the window. His voice broke. No, she followed us." "What do you mean, followed us?" "I saw her last year. Thought it was a dream. I didn't whistle back then." "But you did." We grabbed his truck keys and ran out the back. The crying stopped the second we opened the door. There was nothing in the yard. No wind, no sound, just cold. Then we heard wings. Huge, heavy wings flapping above us. I didn't look up. Arturo did. He screamed. I grabbed his arm and pulled him into the truck. We drove. Didn't care where, just away. He wouldn't talk the whole way back. Just kept whispering, "Don't whistle. Don't whistle. Don't whistle." We haven't spoken since, and I haven't slept right either, because now I hear her. Not outside. Inside. At night. When I'm alone, she whistles from the closet, the bathroom drain. Once she whispered my name in a voice that sounded like my mother's. I've moved twice. Doesn't matter. She follows me now. Some nights I see feathers on the hallway floor, white ones, cold to the touch. One night I found claw marks across the back door, locked from the inside. Nothing broken, nothing missing. But I could feel it, like something had come in anyway. I tried burning sage, crossing myself, praying out loud in both Spanish and English. She just whistled louder. I don't know what she wants. Maybe she feeds on fear, maybe on guilt, or maybe she just likes toying with people like me, the ones who don't believe until it's too late. Last week I caught my reflection blinking when I didn't. My eyes stayed still, but the mirror version smiled. Her smile. I don't tell people anymore. They wouldn't understand. I even tried recording her. The audio picked up nothing. I was 9 when I first heard of Tlaloc's helpers. My grandmother whispered about them during a summer storm in Veracruz, when lightning split a tree just down the road and rain pounded the roof like it wanted to get in. She called them Los Niños Ahogados, the drowned ones, the little hands of Tlaloc sent to gather offerings from the world above. I laughed back then because I didn't understand what she meant. But now I wish I'd listened harder. She said sometimes they came looking for children who got too close to water during a storm, or kids who didn't show respect when the sky cried. She said they had gills on their necks and eyes like river stones, and they smelled like wet dirt and copper. I moved to Austin when I was 21, left the stories behind, buried them with her after the funeral. But legends don't stay buried forever. Last year, I moved into a duplex near the Greenbelt, trailing a breakup and debt like a shadow. My neighbor had 2 kids, a boy and a girl, who used to leave wet footprints near my door even on dry days. I thought nothing of it at first. Just kids being weird, kicking over the hose maybe. But then I started hearing things. Not just water in the pipes or creaking walls. No, these were whispers. Small voices trickling through the vents, calling my name with gurgling syllables that didn't belong in any language I knew. It always started when it rained, even lightly. I'd be trying to sleep and hear a dripping sound, then the voices, then sometimes scratching, like fingers on wet glass. My bathtub would fill an inch or 2 overnight without explanation. I called the landlord 3 times. He sent a plumber. "Nothing wrong," he said, but then I saw something that made me believe I wasn't imagining it. One night I woke up at 3:12 a.m. exactly. The air was thick, my chest heavy. I walked to the bathroom and the light was already on. I swear to you I hadn't touched that switch. And there, standing inside the tub, were 2 sets of small, wet footprints leading up to the drain. Not away from it. To it. like something had climbed out and walked around. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, I tried to laugh it off. I told myself maybe I'd had a dream and sleepwalked. I even looked into stress-induced hallucinations, but deep down I remembered my grandmother's stories. I remembered her voice, low and serious. No te burles de la lluvia. Es sagrada. Don't mock the rain. It's sacred. I started watching the sky more, listening to forecasts, and every time the clouds rolled in, my apartment changed. The walls got damp even with the windows shut. The power would flicker. The floor stayed cold and wet near the bathroom, and the whispers got clearer. They started saying things like, "Come with us," and "He's waiting." I thought about moving, but I had no money and no proof that any of this was real. And part of me needed to know if it was. I think they knew that. I think they could feel me unraveling. Because one night the rain came hard and sudden, and with it came them. I heard the door creak around midnight and saw little puddles leading into my bedroom. I followed them, stupidly, thinking maybe the neighbors' kids had wandered in somehow. But when I turned the corner, I saw something I'll never forget. 2 figures no taller than my waist standing by my bed, skin bluish and slick like river fish, limbs too thin, arms too long for their bodies. Their eyes were bulbous and black, reflecting the hallway light. They turned their heads in perfect sync and smiled with mouths full of tiny broken teeth. Then they opened their jaws, and the sound that came out was the sound of rushing water, not screaming or talking, just water moving fast and deep and endless. I stumbled backward and slammed the door. They didn't follow, but the wet footprints stayed for days. I cleaned them and they came back. Finally, I left for a week, stayed with a cousin near Waco where the air was dry and the sky stayed open, and for a while nothing happened. But when I came back, the apartment smelled like mold and iron and something else, like a pond left too long in the sun. My fish tank was shattered, its water gone. The walls near the tub had grown something dark and soft to the touch. I called someone to check the plumbing again, but when they cut into the wall, they found mud and pebbles and, God help me, something that looked like teeth. They told me it was probably from animals, but they wouldn't touch it again. The night after they left, it rained harder than I'd ever heard in Austin. And around 3 a.m., I woke up choking. There was water in my mouth, in my nose. I couldn't breathe. I staggered to the bathroom and the tub was full to the edge. And in it, staring up at me, were 3 faces now, not 2. The third was smaller, its eyes still closed, its face smooth and perfect and horrifying. And then one opened its eyes, and I heard it whisper, "He accepts you." I haven't lived there since, but the thing is, it doesn't matter. I still wake up soaked in sweat that smells like pond water, and I still find footprints on my windowsill. I don't expect anyone to believe this, because I barely believe it myself, and I lived through it. If you can call what I do now living, maybe it's more accurate to say I exist, and that's only because she lets me. For now, it started when I moved to Querétaro last spring, after getting a job teaching history at a small private university, the kind that used to be a convent before the revolution. You know, the type old stone corridors, musty libraries, crosses in every room, and more statues than students. The place had a strange silence about it, like it remembered every confession and scream that ever echoed through its halls. My abuela used to tell me stories about places like that. When I was growing up in Guanajuato, she warned me that where faith runs deep, shadows dig deeper. She used to talk about a nun who was buried alive behind the chapel wall for breaking her vows, and how her spirit never left, how she wandered the halls at night, weeping blood and looking for someone to take her place. I always thought, She was just trying to scare me into staying in bed, but I hear her voice a lot now, and I wonder if maybe she was trying to protect me. The first time I saw the nun, it was just after midterms. I stayed late grading papers in my office, which had once been the upper quarters for visiting clergy. The walls were thick, the windows narrow, and the door never quite shut right. I heard the bell tower chime midnight, even though no one rings it anymore, and then the lights flickered. I thought it was just bad wiring, but then I smelled something sweet and wrong, like old flowers left in a crypt. I turned and saw her standing at the end of the hall, long black veil face pale and sunken, her habit torn and stained with something dark, her hands clasped like in prayer, but twitching like she was holding something too tightly. I blinked, and she was gone. I told myself I was just tired, too much coffee, not enough sleep, the usual academic burnout. But the next day, my office door was wide open, and on my desk was a single black rosary, one I'd never seen before, with a crucifix that looked like it had been chewed. I tried to laugh it off, but when I touched it, my hand went ice cold, and I heard whispering in Latin. I don't speak Latin, but I understood enough it was a warning, or maybe a welcome. I started asking around. The older faculty avoided my questions. One janitor told me quietly that when he was a student, someone had dared a girl to sleep in the old chapel overnight, and they found her the next morning, eyes gouged out, a mouth filled with ash. She never spoke again, just drew crosses on every wall until they committed her. I didn't believe him then, but I do now, especially after what happened in the library. I was looking for archival material for a lecture on colonial religious practices when I found a sealed section tucked behind an old curtain. The air was colder there, the lights dimmer even when fully on. I should have walked away, but curiosity's a curse. I opened the gate and stepped inside. Rows of dusty books, old candles melted to the floor, and at the far end a painting of a nun with no face, just a smudge where her eyes should have been. As I turned to leave, I heard footsteps behind me, slow, deliberate, dragging something heavy. I didn't look. I just ran and slammed the gate behind me. I didn't sleep that night. The rosary was back on my desk, the chain wet, like it had been soaked in. Something thick. I threw it away, burned it actually. But the next night, it was hanging on my doorknob, gently swaying like it had just been placed there. I started hearing weeping in the walls, soft at first, then louder, always around 3 a.m., and always followed by the faint sound of chanting. I moved out of the office, started working from home, but it didn't help. I'd wake up with bruises on my arms in the shape of fingers, and once with the taste of wax in my mouth, like I'd swallowed a candle. I tried cleansing, rituals, salt lines, prayers, even got a priest to bless the place. But when he entered, he went pale, said there was a weight he couldn't describe, and left without saying another word that night. I dreamed of the nun again, but this time she was closer. Her veil lifted just enough to show a mouth sewn shut with rosary beads. Her eyes were empty sockets leaking tears made of ink. She reached for me, and I felt my skin blister. I woke up screaming with a burn on my chest in the shape of a cross flipped upside down. I haven't taught since then. Can't even go near the university without getting sick, and the dreams haven't stopped every night. She's closer. Every night the whispers get louder. They call me by name now. They say it's time. They say she chose me and that no one escapes. I tried leaving Mexico, flew to Spain to visit an old friend, but even there, I saw a reflection in mirrors and windows. She crossed oceans, just to remind me that this isn't over, that I belong to her now. I keep the lights on at night, sleep with a Bible under my pillow, but nothing helps. The air still goes cold. I never believed in the old stories. Growing up in Tlaxcala, we all heard them whispered by grandparents during storms or passed around in jokes at school, especially the one about the Tlahuelpuchi, a cursed blood drinker that could change shape and slip through cracks like smoke-hunting babies at night and draining the life from them with a kiss. I thought it was just folklore, a warning tale to keep kids from wandering too far from home at night, but now, after what happened to my niece, after what happened to me, I know it's real and it's waiting. I moved back home last year after losing my job in Puebla, couldn't afford the city anymore, so I swallowed my pride and came back to live with my sister Carla in the same crooked house we grew up in. It's one of those homes that always feels cold even in summer, where the wood groans when no one's walking, and the windows seem to sweat like the house itself is breathing. She had a baby girl, Leah, just a few months old, and, I'll be honest, I didn't like being around her, not because she cried, but because sometimes she didn't cry when she should. She'd just stare at things that weren't there, eyes wide, like she was watching something move above her crib, something no one else could see. I started hearing strange noises the first week, nothing dramatic. Just light tapping on the walls or the rustle of fabric in the middle of the night. Carla said it was the house settling or cats outside, but we didn't have any pets, and the sounds always came from inside. Then Leah got sick, not a cold, not a fever, something else. Her skin went pale, her lips bluish, and she barely responded. We took her to the doctor. They said she was anemic, severely so, but couldn't explain why. They checked for internal bleeding, tested her bone marrow. Everything came back clean, and the only advice they gave was to monitor her and feed her iron supplements that night. I offered to stay up and watch her let Carla sleep. I didn't really want to be alone with the baby, but I felt guilty, like I wasn't doing enough. I sat up next to her crib with a book and a lamp and tried to stay awake around 3 a.m. I must have dozed off because I woke to the sound of something soft brushing against the window, not tapping, more like dragging, like long fingers sliding over glass. I looked up and saw nothing but fog on the outside pane. But then I noticed the cold, the kind that doesn't make sense in August. The air in the room was freezing my breath, visible, and the baby started crying, not loudly, not sharply. Just this soft whimper, like she couldn't scream. I leaned over her, and that's when I saw it, not clearly, not all at once, but in flashes, like my brain couldn't process the shape. It was crouched in the corner, near the ceiling, skin grey and stretched, with wings like a bat's, but longer, bonier. It had no eyes, just empty sockets, and a mouth too wide with too many teeth. Its limbs bent the wrong way, and its body shimmered like oil in water, as if it wasn't fully solid. I froze, couldn't breathe, couldn't move. The thing looked down at the baby and then at me, and I swear it smiled. Not with its mouth, but with its whole body, like it was enjoying the fear feeding on it. The lamp flickered and went out, and the thing dropped from the ceiling, silent and smooth landing near the crib. I finally moved, lunged forward, swinging the heavy book I had in my hand. It passed through it like mist, but the thing hissed and pulled back, disappearing into the shadow. Under the dresser, Carla ran in, seconds later flipping on the overhead light and screaming when she saw me crouched over the baby, panting, drenched in sweat. Leah was okay for the moment, but the bruise on her neck in the shape of a handprint wasn't something I could explain. We moved her crib into Carla's room the next day, but it didn't stop the thing from coming back. We tried priests, healers, burning herbs at every doorway. One curandera from the mountains told us what we were dealing with. She called it by name, said it was a Tlahuelpuchi one that had chosen Leah, marked her, that it needed her life to survive, and it wouldn't stop until it finished the feeding, or until it was fed something else. She said it could be killed, but only by family blood, and only when it took its human shape she warned us that sometimes the Tlahuelpuchi was someone you knew. Someone close, someone who'd made a deal long ago and forgotten the cost. I didn't want to believe her until I found the shed behind the house where our uncle used to live. It was full of bones, feathers, old jars filled with blackened herbs, and a book handwritten in Nahuatl with pages marked in blood. I found a mirror wrapped in cloth, and when I uncovered it, I didn't see myself, not exactly. I saw something behind my eyes like a shadow stitched to my soul. Grinning that night, I didn't sleep. I sat with a knife across my lap and waited. And when the hour came, and the shadows thickened, and the baby's cries filled the house, I saw her again. Or rather, I saw him. My uncle no longer dead or aged, but young as I remembered him. I know it sounds crazy, but I swear to you, I saw something that night, something not human, not an animal, something ancient that should have died, with the last of the temples and blood rituals, but it didn't. It's still here, waiting, beneath the surface. I was born in Xochimilco, the real one. Not the tourist traps, the part where the water runs dark, and the chinampas rot, and the birds don't sing. I used to play near the canals with my cousin Diego. Even though our abuela warned us never to get too close, she said the water had memory, and it remembered every sacrifice, every scream, every offering. I never understood what she meant. Until the night he disappeared, we were 16 and stupid and drunk on mezcal. We stole from his brother. We took a boat out late. Way past the time anyone should have been on the water, the air was thick and heavy. The kind of night where the mosquitoes don't even bother you because they know something worse is coming. Diego dared me to row us to the far side near the abandoned islands, the ones with the broken dolls and sagging trees, the ones no one talks about. We laughed, joked about ghosts and brujas and La Llorona, but the closer we got, the quieter. Everything became no frogs, no owls, just the creaking of the boat and the splash of the oar, and then even that stopped. I don't know how to explain it. The water just stopped moving completely, like we were sitting on glass, like the whole world paused and held its breath. Diego looked at me and said, "Did you hear that?" But I hadn't heard anything until I did a soft splash behind us. Then another. Then something like fingers drumming on wood. He leaned over the edge, squinting into the dark, and I swear to God I saw a hand come out of the water. Not a human hand. Not exactly. It was slick and black, like it was covered in tar with fingers too long, and a thumb growing out of its wrist. It grabbed him so fast he didn't even scream, just vanished with a splash. And I sat there, frozen, too scared to move, too scared to breathe. And then something brushed my ankle. I don't know how I got back to shore. I must have paddled like hell, but when I stumbled home, soaked and shaking, my mother slapped me before I could speak and said I'd brought the bad thing with me. She called it by name, Ahuizotl, said it was older than the city, older than the gods, and that once it took blood, it never stopped. She told me Diego was gone, and I needed to forget him. That's how they all acted. The cops didn't search the community, pretended he'd run away. But I knew what I saw, and I couldn't forget it, because it didn't forget me. It started small puddles in the hallway, though it hadn't rained the sound of dripping in my room, even when everything was dry. Then the dreams always of water, always of Diego calling me from beneath the surface. His eyes wide, his mouth full of riverweed. The worst part was the smell. I'd wake up to it every night. The stench of wet fur and rot, like something crawled out of the lake and into my house. I moved out 6 months later, got a job in Puebla, tried to start over, but it followed me every shower, every faucet. I couldn't stand the sound of water without shaking. And then people around me started dying. First, my upstairs neighbor, slipped in her tub, cracked her head open, then a co-worker found drowned in his apartment. Sink. No sign of forced entry. No struggle, just waterlogged lungs and terror on their faces. I started researching, found old codices, descriptions, warnings, they all match the same thing. A creature with hands like a monkey, a cry like a baby and teeth in its tail, a predator of the waterways that took people to Tlaloc, not out of reverence but hunger. I tried to warn people, but no one listens until it's too late. I stopped using water entirely, carried bottles everywhere, wore gloves in the rain. But the thing is patient, it waits. I saw it again last week. I was walking home late past a drainage canal, and I heard it, the cry of a baby, soft and weak. I knew better, but my body moved toward it anyway, like I was being pulled. I looked down, and there it was, staring up at me, pale eyes glowing just below the surface, and a smile that didn't belong to anything alive. It whispered my name in Diego's voice, and reached up slowly, gently, like it was inviting me. I ran and didn't stop, until I threw up in the street. I'm writing this now because I think it's getting closer last night. I woke up choking my bed, soaked and my window open. Though I never open it, the floor was wet, the walls slick, and there were footprints, muddy and clawed, leading from the bathroom to the edge of my bed. I don't think I'll survive another night. It doesn't want just blood. It wants memory. It wants the fear it tasted when I watched my cousin die and did nothing, and now it wants me to finish the story. I think maybe that's how it works, how it spreads, by surviving in the fear of others. So if you hear water where there shouldn't be, if you smell the rot of a swamp in your home, if you hear a baby crying where no baby should be run, don't look back.
If you enjoyed the journey and survived it, don't forget to like the video, share it with someone who sleeps too easily, and subscribe for more original horror stories delivered straight into your nightmares. And if you have a true tale or twisted idea you'd like me to bring to life, leave it in the comments below. I read them all. Some of my favorite stories come from minds just like yours. And so the final candle is burned out, but some stories never really end. They wait in the corners of your mind, and now so must you. You have heard the incantations of the demised, the shadows sworn to secrecy. But what slipped through, what followed you back into the light, if these stories stirred something inside you, if they made you hesitate before turning off the lights, then don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because next time, we're going deeper. So rest while you can, because next time the story just might be about you.